The sun blazed mercilessly over the endless desert, burning the sky into an unforgiving sheet of blue. Abigail Clark's lips, cracked and dry, trembled as she took another shallow, painful breath. Her once vibrant blue dress was now torn, dust-covered, and faded from days of relentless exposure. She shielded her eyes, squinting across the barren expanse that stretched endlessly before her. They were gone. The wagons, the settlers, even the thin trails of dust they'd kicked up in their wake. Everything vanished into the distance. They had abandoned her, casting her out like a broken wheel, useless and forgotten. Abigail felt the sting of betrayal more sharply than the relentless desert heat. She knew their reasons. She had heard their whispers during the nights as they huddled around dwindling campfires. A single woman, widowed and alone, was too great a burden to bear on this harsh journey west. When fever had taken her husband, James, they'd comforted her at first, but sympathy soon gave way to impatience, impatience to resentment, until finally practicality had won out. A bitter gust of wind swept around her, carrying with it grains of sand that scraped her skin. Abigail staggered forward, her boots sinking into the hot earth with each labored step. Nearby lay a canteen, discarded carelessly, an afterthought to soothe their guilty consciences. She picked it up, shaking it gently. Less than half full. She took a careful sip, the lukewarm water barely enough to wet her swollen tongue. Every instinct screamed at her to collapse, to give in to the despair that threatened to consume her. But a deeper, stubborn part of her refused to surrender. Not yet. Not like this. Memories of James filled her mind, vivid and cruel in their clarity. His laughter, rich and deep, echoed faintly in her ears, replaced now by the hollow silence of solitude. She could still feel his hand squeezing hers tightly as he whispered promises of a better life out west. Those promises had died with him, leaving her stranded in this wasteland. Hours crawled by, the sun reaching its peak and bearing down on her with brutal intensity. The horizon shimmered, teasing her with phantom visions of lakes and trees. Each illusion vanished as she drew near, mocking her desperation. Her legs trembled beneath her, exhaustion gnawing at her bones like a relentless predator. Then she saw it, a shadow, slight at first, shifting subtly against the backdrop of scorched earth and jagged rocks. Abigail halted, heart pounding wildly in her chest, torn between fear and desperate hope. The figure stood motionless, watching her from a distance. Gathering the last remnants of her strength, she approached cautiously. The shadow resolved into a man, tall and lean, his posture relaxed yet alert. He wore buckskin pants and a shirt made of rough cloth. Long dark hair framed sharp, observant eyes that missed nothing. A rifle rested easily in one hand. A native, she realized, fear tightening her throat. The settlers had spoken of them often, their voices filled with dread and disdain. Abigail had never encountered one before, had never even imagined she'd have reason to. She stopped a few paces away, struggling to steady her voice. "Please, I need water." The man regarded her silently, his gaze unyielding. After a long, tense moment, he gestured toward her canteen. Abigail shook her head weakly. Not enough. He studied her for another quiet heartbeat before turning to leave. Panic surged through her veins, driving her forward. "Wait! Please don't go!" He paused, turning slowly back to face her. His expression was unreadable, but she felt his appraisal like a physical weight. She stood, trembling slightly, clutching her canteen as if it could protect her. Without a word, he approached, moving with quiet grace. Abigail braced herself, every muscle rigid with anticipation. But he did not harm her. Instead, his hand gently closed around her wrist, his touch warm and firm. She flinched, heart racing, yet found herself unable to pull away. In one fluid motion, he lifted her onto his shoulder. Abigail struggled weakly, her exhausted limbs useless against his effortless strength. Her vision blurred, and darkness crept at the edges of her sight. Before unconsciousness claimed her entirely, she registered the distant call of a hawk, echoing over the desert, a cry of freedom, or perhaps a warning. When she awoke, Abigail found herself lying on a woven mat inside a shelter crafted from timber and clay. A low fire burned steadily nearby, casting soft shadows on the curved walls. The air was thick with the comforting scent of wood smoke and something earthy she couldn't place. She turned her head, wincing at the stiffness in her neck, and saw the man seated across the fire. He watched her intently, his hands skillfully weaving leather strips. For several long moments, they regarded each other in silence. "Where am I?" she croaked, voice rough with thirst and confusion. "Safe," he replied quietly, his tone calm and certain. She pushed herself slowly upright, the effort nearly overwhelming. "Why did you help me?" He didn't answer immediately, his dark eyes reflecting the firelight. Finally, he said simply, "Because you needed help." Suspicion flickered in her chest. Nothing in her life had ever come without cost. "What do you want from me?" His gaze didn't waver, nor did his calm demeanor shift. "Nothing." Her heart hammered uncertainly. Trust had become foreign to her, something dangerous and rare. Yet in this strange shelter with this quiet stranger, Abigail felt the first fragile threads of safety she'd known in weeks. "Who are you?" she finally asked. "My name is Kohana," he answered, setting aside his work and meeting her eyes steadily. "Rest now. You're safe." Abigail laid back down, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. She didn't know if it was trust or mere exhaustion, but for the moment, she allowed herself to believe him. For the first time since she'd been abandoned, the desert's harsh cruelty felt a little further away. Days blurred into nights, punctuated by the quiet rhythm of life in Kohana's village. Abigail gradually regained her strength under the care of those who watched her with wary curiosity. Her initial suspicion slowly eased into a cautious acceptance, yet she couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. Each morning, Kohana would wake her before dawn, guiding her outside to face the chill air and the rising sun that bathed the desert in hues of gold and crimson. Today, he handed her a slender bow, worn smooth from use, its wood polished by countless hands. "You must learn to hunt," Kohana said simply, nodding toward a distant target fashioned from dried grass. Abigail took the bow uncertainly, feeling the unfamiliar weight in her hands. "I don't know if I can—" "You must," he replied, his voice firm yet patient. "Survival depends on strength and skill." With Kohana watching, Abigail awkwardly nocked an arrow, pulling back with trembling fingers. Her first shot wobbled weakly, landing well short of the target. Frustration heated her cheeks, but Kohana merely indicated for her to try again. Hours passed under the relentless sun. Her fingers blistered and her shoulders burned. Yet Kohana offered neither comfort nor criticism, only quiet patience. By afternoon, Abigail managed to land an arrow close to the center. She turned to Kohana, hopeful. "Better," he acknowledged calmly. "But still not enough." She clenched her jaw, raising the bow again, determined to prove herself. Kohana nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth as she steadied her aim. Each day brought new challenges. Abigail learned to read tracks in the dust, identify edible plants hidden among harsh scrub, and navigate using only the stars and distant landmarks. Kohana was a quiet, relentless teacher, expecting nothing less than her best effort, yet never once raising his voice. One evening, as the fire crackled softly and stars blanketed the sky, Abigail finally dared to ask, "Why are you helping me?" Kohana studied her, the firelight flickering across his thoughtful face. "Because you are strong, even if you do not know it yet." She felt warmth blossom in her chest, a sense of pride mingling with something deeper, something softer she couldn't yet name. The following morning, Kohana led her further than they had ever gone, into rugged terrain dotted with steep cliffs and thick brush. Abigail moved carefully, mirroring Kohana's silent, sure-footed steps. Suddenly, Kohana froze, raising a hand. Abigail stopped immediately, her heart pounding. Ahead, hidden beneath a thorny bush, was a small deer, grazing peacefully. Kohana silently gestured for her to prepare her bow. Taking a slow breath, Abigail aimed carefully, recalling every lesson he'd taught her. She released the arrow. It flew straight, striking true. The deer staggered briefly, then fell still. Abigail's heart lurched, torn between pride and sorrow. Kohana placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You honor its life by using all it gives," he explained quietly. Nothing is wasted. As they worked together, carefully skinning and preparing the animal, Abigail felt a profound sense of connection to Kahana, to the land, and to her own newfound strength. They returned to the village carrying their prize, and Abigail saw a new respect reflected in the villagers' eyes. Days turned into weeks, and Abigail grew stronger, more confident. But one morning as she practiced her bow alone near the riverbank, she felt a familiar prickle of unease. Turning sharply, she saw a small group approaching from across the dusty plain, settlers on horseback, their leader unmistakably familiar. Her pulse quickened as she recognized the man who had abandoned her. His rugged face was tense, his eyes narrow as they spotted her standing strong and alert, not the frail creature they had discarded. "Abigail," he called gruffly, reining his horse to a halt. "Thought you'd be long dead by now." She straightened her back, her voice steady. "I survived," he sneered slightly. "Seems you've done more than survive. But this isn't your place. Come with us." She hesitated only briefly, the pain of betrayal still sharp. "Why should I trust you now?" The man frowned, irritation flashing in his eyes. "We're your people. Your place is with us." "You left me to die," she retorted, anger rising in her chest. "You lost any claim to loyalty then." His eyes darkened. "You're making a mistake." "No," she replied firmly. "I made my mistake trusting you once. Never again." Kahana appeared silently at her side, his presence steadying her resolve. He didn't speak, but the message was clear. She was not alone. With a muttered curse, the leader turned his horse away, signaling the others to follow. Abigail watched until they vanished over the horizon, a sense of quiet triumph filling her chest. Kahana regarded her thoughtfully. "You chose your own path," he observed gently. She nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her decision. "I did." Together they returned to the village. Abigail walked taller, a quiet strength evident in every step. She had faced the ghosts of her past and emerged stronger for it. Kohana's quiet approval warmed her, grounding her in the certainty that she had found something worth fighting for, herself. Life in the village settled into a comforting routine, though Abigail knew she remained under constant scrutiny. Despite the villagers' cautious acceptance, she often felt their gazes linger, uncertain of her place among them. Still, Abigail found unexpected comfort in the simplicity of her new existence, in the quiet moments shared with Kohana, who remained both mentor and enigmatic companion. One afternoon, as clouds darkened the horizon, Kohana approached Abigail with urgency in his eyes. "A storm is coming. It will be dangerous." She glanced toward the sky, where billowing clouds rapidly gathered, casting an eerie shadow across the desert. The air grew heavy, charged with anticipation. Villagers rushed to secure their shelters and belongings, urgency evident in their movements. Kohana handed her a sturdy rope. "Come, we must help secure the food stores." They moved swiftly, tying down supplies and reinforcing structures. Thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, growing louder with each passing moment. The wind picked up suddenly, howling fiercely, whipping sand into blinding swirls. A sudden, deafening crack split the sky, lightning striking near the village's edge. Sparks ignited dry brush, flames roaring to life. Panic surged through Abigail as fire raced across the brittle landscape, hungry and relentless. "Fire!" villagers shouted, scrambling desperately. Abigail's heart raced, fear tightening her throat. Kahana grabbed her arm firmly. "We must guide them to safety." She nodded, fighting panic, and ran alongside him, calling out instructions to the villagers, guiding them toward higher ground away from the flames. Smoke thickened, choking her lungs, burning her eyes. "The children!" a woman screamed suddenly, pointing desperately toward a shelter rapidly becoming engulfed by fire. Abigail recognized her as Talisa, a mother who had cautiously welcomed her. Without hesitation, Abigail sprinted toward the burning shelter, ignoring Kohana's urgent calls. Flames lashed at her, heat searing her skin. Coughing, eyes streaming, she pushed inside the structure. The two children huddled terrified in the corner, eyes wide with fear. "Come!" Abigail shouted, extending her hand. They clung to her desperately, their small bodies shaking violently. Holding them tightly, she turned toward the doorway, flames blocking their path. Abigail! Kohana's voice echoed sharply through the chaos. Here, she called back, coughing violently. We're trapped! Without hesitation, Kohana burst through the smoke, shielding his face with damp cloth. He swiftly cleared the burning debris from their path, creating a narrow escape route. Now, he commanded urgently. Abigail pushed forward, carrying one child while Kohana grabbed the other, and together they burst from the blazing structure moments before it collapsed. They stumbled away from the inferno, gasping for air. Talisa rushed forward, sobbing as she embraced her children. Thank you, she whispered fiercely, tears streaming down her soot-streaked face. Thank you. The village watched Abigail with newfound respect, their earlier doubts now burned away by her courage. Kohana placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, his eyes reflecting quiet pride. You risked your life for them, he said softly, admiration evident in his tone. They're my people now, she replied, voice hoarse from smoke but strong with conviction. In the days following the devastating storm, the village slowly began rebuilding. Abigail worked tirelessly alongside them, her hands blistered but her spirit resilient. She felt a deep sense of belonging she'd never known before. One evening, as stars filled the clear night sky, Abigail found herself standing beside Kohana, overlooking the village now alive again, with laughter and hope. I never expected to find peace here, she admitted quietly. Kohana turned, his gaze gentle yet intense. Peace finds those who fight for it. You have earned your place among us. She smiled softly, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Thanks to you. He shook his head slightly, a rare smile touching his lips. Number it was always within you. I simply helped you see it. Abigail's heart swelled, gratitude and something deeper stirring within her. Under the vast desert sky, beneath the gentle gaze of the stars, she knew her journey wasn't just about survival. It was about discovering the strength hidden deep within her, waiting patiently to be found. Weeks blended into months, marked by hard labor, shared laughter, and quiet reflection. The village began to fully recover from the storm, structures rebuilt sturdier than before, crops replanted, and spirits renewed. Abigail stood at the heart of it, her presence now seamlessly integrated into the fabric of village life. Yet a shadow of apprehension occasionally crossed her heart, lingering thoughts of those she'd left behind. The memories of betrayal remained, as did a quiet, persistent worry that the settlers might return. One crisp morning, scouts returned hastily, their expressions tense. Abigail's heart quickened with dread as Kohana approached her, his face serious. Riders approach from the east, he said quietly, his voice calm despite the tension. The settlers return. She swallowed hard, steadying her nerves. The villagers quickly gathered in the central clearing, anxiety rippling through them, like wind through dry grass. Abigail took a deep breath, standing straight and confident beside Kohana. Soon the riders appeared, dust trailing in their wake. Abigail instantly recognized the lead rider, a familiar face etched with hardness and bitterness, the leader who had abandoned her. He pulled up his horse sharply, glaring down at her with narrowed eyes. Abigail, he called out, voice rough with disdain. Seems you've managed to survive after all. No thanks to you, she responded coldly, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. He sneered slightly, dismounting with exaggerated deliberation. We've come to take you back. You don't belong here. Kohana stepped forward, his posture protective yet composed. She chooses where she belongs. It is not your place to decide. The settler scoffed, eyes flicking dismissively over Kohana. We don't need advice from you. She's ours and we're taking her home. Abigail felt her anger rise, hot and sharp. You left me to die, she said firmly, voice strong and clear. You forfeited any right to call me yours. My home is here. He glared at her, anger flashing dangerously. You're making a grave mistake, Abigail. She stepped forward boldly, fueled by a newfound strength. The mistake was trusting you. I've made my choice. Now leave. He glanced at his men, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They had not expected resistance, certainly not from the woman they'd cast aside. He stepped closer, eyes narrowing with cold calculation. You think they truly accept you here? You're fooling yourself. You're wrong, she replied steadily. They gave me what you never could: respect, kindness, and a true home. He shifted slightly, hand resting ominously on his pistol. Kahana moved instinctively, subtly positioning himself between Abigail and the settler, his stance relaxed yet ready. The villagers behind them tensed, ready to defend one of their own. "Don't do this," Kohana warned quietly, his voice like steel wrapped in silk. "You have no place here. Leave in peace." The settler leader hesitated, clearly weighing his odds. His men shifted nervously in their saddles, sensing the villagers' readiness and unity. Abigail watched him, unyielding, determined to protect the life she'd worked tirelessly to build. Finally, after a tense silence, he stepped back, jaw clenched tight. "You'll regret this decision," he muttered darkly, turning sharply to mount his horse. The others followed suit, visibly relieved. They rode away, dust clouding their departure, the village watching until the riders disappeared beyond the horizon. A collective sigh of relief echoed softly through the gathered crowd. Kahana turned to Abigail, his expression gentle, reassuring. "You showed great courage," he said softly, pride evident in his voice. She exhaled shakily, smiling faintly up at him. "I couldn't have done it without you, without all of you," she said, looking gratefully around at the villagers, who now gazed back at her warmly, openly accepting. Days passed in peace, and Abigail's role in the community deepened. She taught the village children about the settlers' ways, bridging two worlds with care and wisdom. Each evening she joined Kahana by the fire, sharing stories in comfortable silences. One tranquil night, as stars spilled generously across the velvet sky, Kahana guided Abigail to a secluded cliff overlooking the vast desert below, bathed softly in moonlight. "I come here when I need to reflect," Kahana said quietly, eyes fixed on the infinite horizon. "This place reminds me of what matters most." "And what matters most to you?" Abigail asked softly, her heart beating quicker. He turned, eyes warm and sincere. "Home, honor, family, and you." She caught her breath, warmth spreading through her chest. "You've become my home," she whispered gently. "You in this place." He reached out, gently taking her hand, his touch warm and comforting. "Then stay with me. Share this life and this land." Abigail squeezed his hand softly, heart swelling with joy and certainty. "Yes." Together they stood quietly, the vastness of the desert stretching out before them, silent witness to their shared promise. Abigail felt the final remnants of her past dissolve, replaced by something infinitely stronger, a true home, built from trust, courage, and the gentle promise of love. In the months and years that followed, Abigail became integral to the village, honored and respected. She watched children grow, crops flourish, and the community thrive, all while standing proudly at Kahana's side. And on quiet nights beneath the endless tapestry of stars, she would reflect on her journey, the pain and betrayal, the struggle and triumph, and know without doubt that she'd finally arrived at the place she'd always belonged. She was home,